Welcome this week of Missouri Politics. Busy week in politics, session winding down. We have the Speaker of the Missouri House of Representatives, Dean Plocher, right fresh off the House floor from one of the biggest accomplishments I've seen in a long time. You passed a major education reform. Tell folks what's in it.
Well, what a day. I mean, I've been here 9 years, and I can't be more proud of my colleagues, the hard work that so many people put into this. You know, we passed a little bit of charter, a little bit of ESAs in the past, but never have we put a complete package together where we really help support our teachers. We give them a pay raise. There are only 3 Democrats that actually voted for that. I want to really thank Marlene Terry and Chantel Clark and Steve Butts. I mean, they stood up for the teachers along with the Republicans. We gave the teachers a pay raise, trying to help recognize all the effort that they put in. We help schools, transportation, and we give parents choices. The bill that we passed today, 727, is a huge investment into Missouri's kids and our families, which is what's going to move Missouri in the better direction. And I can't thank guys like Brad Pollitt enough, who's been working on this for years. You got Phil Cristofanelli, who's put his heart and soul into this.
Take folks behind the curtain, because there is no question, whether you support this bill,
absolutely,
it's a major piece of legislation that changes Missouri public policy as much as anything I've seen in the last 5 years probably. You're in the second year of your speakership. This is usually the time of an election year. You're running for office. I mean, I think most folks thought, okay, we got after spring break. Nothing's going to happen. The Senate's going to lock down. He's got a foot out the door. It's an abnormal thing to have this kind of accomplishment in an election year at this stage of session. Take folks behind the curtain and see, how did that all come together?
Well, I'll admit to working hard, because I've always stood for choice in schools. But I'll tell you right now, we have a great Senate working hard. Senator Andrew Keeney came through for us and helped work on this bill to bring it over to the House to make sure that they didn't shut down. Cindy O'Laughlin has been standing for this bill for a long time. My colleagues in the House, I can't thank them.
I first met Caleb Browden,
yes,
the guy that I thought was going to lose his House primary to Dennis, the former senator in Columbia. You just thought, well, there's no way, right? He was talking about the Columbia school system and how he did not like it.
Huge win for him.
The guy has been his whole career trying to get this done. A good, honorable man.
Absolutely.
It's almost, even the most cynical political observers got to think, well, good for Caleb, right?
Absolutely. And, I think this is going to be one of the hallmark moments of his career. I served with him in the House. And
I bet you he thinks it's the number. I bet if you ask him, this is probably his biggest accomplishment.
I think so. And it's a huge accomplishment. And he should be very proud of it. I think all of us should really be proud of it. Our investment in our kids and our parents, and what we're doing for education and helping move Missouri forward in the right direction. I've been here 9 years. I haven't seen anything like it.
So you go behind the scenes, Phil Cristofanelli, this guy has worked this issue tirelessly forever. I mean, I thought he led a heck of an effort, and I think probably the best forced speech I've heard all year was Marlene Terry.
Great,
outstanding.
Great one. From the other side of the aisle, I might add. It was great to see that effort that she brought to the table. Steve Butts as well. Phil Cristofanelli, along with Brad Pollitt, the 2 representatives, have been in this building a long time, working on education together, and they often butt heads, but they came together here to put a package together, and I can't be more proud of them.
Brad Pollitt, a guy, former superintendent from Sedalia, he's really a statesman. He's the kind of guy that shouldn't be making these kind of tough decisions. It's not easy for a guy who spent his career in the school system to come out and craft compromises that could get passed.
No, it isn't. But you know what? He's essential in that role. And when I named him as chair of education, I knew he was going to bring an essential component to the argument for school choice while working to protect the teachers, working to protect our schools in Missouri, and advocating for substantial reform that can blend everything together. And I think that's what we have here. We couldn't have done it without Brad Pollitt. We couldn't have done this without Phil Cristofanelli. We couldn't have done it without Andrew Koenig over in the Senate, and Caleb as well. Cindy O'Laughlin. I mean, this isn't one person doing this. This is a lot of people behind the scenes that had to, lean into this to get this done, to advocate for our children.
All right. There's been 1,000 news stories. The liberal interest groups have put out information about this ethics investigation. It had to feel good after 7 months. In endless investigations, it goes on and it goes on. And then they spend tens of thousands of dollars. And folks started smelling a rat probably 2 months ago, to be fair. The thing just fell apart. Your colleagues give you a 6-2 vote saying the report that the staff and the chairwoman put out was not accepted. After all this time, it had to feel good.
It does. My wife and I have been scratching our heads for a long time on this. My wife has stood by my side, and I can't thank her enough. But what came out this week was exactly what we discussed in November.
When I was reading through this, what you testified for this committee, can you take folks behind the curtain and tell them what that was like and what you said?
It was an experience, and I'll leave it at that. I don't think it's the right time to talk about my testimony.
So the chairwoman's out posting Facebooks about your appearance there?
That's her prerogative. I don't really agree with that, but I think that...
Let me ask you this. There's folks, no one could follow this process. It has been so clownish. But I think a regular Missourian could understand there's something, and it could be the hint of scandal. It's read through the Post-Dispatch. It's going to hit you. You're a Republican. They're very liberal. End of the day, what would you tell somebody that's heard all this rumor and innuendo about what happened here?
I would tell you to look back in November. Everything was explained in November. It was very transparent, very forthright. We caucused on it November the 9th. I explained myself to the caucus. That's all it was. This committee should have resolved itself, I contend, in November, December. But it hasn't. And
is it nice to call your wife Monday night and tell her about the vote?
Yes, absolutely.
I think so, too.
But, I can't thank Rebecca enough. She's been stellar in this whole thing.
You're running for Secretary of State.
Oh, we are.
Let's walk this through. You started off Lieutenant Governor. I always heard you talk about Secretary of State. Then it kind of switched a little bit Lieutenant Governor. What was the one thing that made you move over that race?
Well, I've advocated for IP reform. I've advocated for cleaner Missouri. I've advocated for a lot of issues.
This Mr. IP reform. To your credit, I interviewed you the week after you got elected in this special election. You were talking about initiative petitions. This has been your issue from the start. It's huge. It's complicated. It's hard. But you've been an OG on that issue, which ties in the Secretary of State's office.
It absolutely does. I don't like these outside interests from liberal groups in California, New York, trying to assert themselves in Missouri without informing the voters. I respect the voters. I want their votes to be heard, and I want them to be informed. And that's why I've stood by initiative petition reform. So the Secretary of State, it's a great position to help work for the voters and make sure their votes are counted, work in securities laws, corporation. I have a background in that. I'm a lawyer. I worked in the securities industry for 2 years before I went to law school.
Warren Blunt says it's the best job he ever had.
He is, and I spoke to him the other day, and it gave me more motivation. And so I look to follow in his footsteps in that. I look to work with the local election officials because I think elections are local.
This is my question to you. I know a lot of county clerks, and every one of them hated Jason Kander because he wouldn't answer their questions. They liked Jay Ashcroft at first. Then they got a little frustrated. If a county clerk is trying to do the right thing and they call you, will you take their call and help them?
Absolutely. I think that's the role of government.
We're going to take this. We're going to play this bet.
Okay.
So
hold me to it.
If you're Angie Curley in Denton County and she calls your office and she's trying to sort something, and she's earnestly trying to do things right, you'll help her.
Absolutely. I don't think the role of government is to assert large, big government on local officials for their election process. I mean, I live in St. Louis County. We have a different type of election process in a way on how Rick Stream, former representative, former budget chair, doing a phenomenal job. Fry's in there too. They're working. It's a different process in St. Louis County than it is in Adair County or whatever. And I think those officials in those counties understand their counties better. I think our role as Secretary of State is to help them through this process and give them the resources they need.
Want is for when they have a complicated question that comes up, I want somebody to help them answer it.
Absolutely.
It's like I thought that Liz at the Ethics Commission has done a great job. If you're honestly trying to follow the rules, they'll help you. Yeah. And I think if the clerks are trying to follow the rules, help them.
I think so. And my role as Speaker has been to help members come in all across the aisle and say, hey, listen, how can we work to bring people together to pass legislation for Missouri? This is about letting the voters be heard. The Secretary of State is pivotal to that role, and I look forward to it.
So I, like most folks in Missouri politics, watched the House today. 82 votes on the education bill. That's exactly the number you need.
Yes.
Why have extra to spare? That's just bragging, right? So that costs about $800 million. Some folks would say more, some less, but the number was $800 million that you guys came to somehow. The next thing was a tax cut bill.
Yes.
Now, I'm just a simple hillbilly. You were a high-ranking government official. I have to take my boots off to do the math, but how do you spend a ton more and then plan to take in less?
Well, the number that they've looked at is obviously extended way into the future as well, because there are certain parameters that are factored into that, and I think we should look at that. Throughout my time in the House, we've cut income taxes. Last year, we cut Social Security taxes. This brings private pensions into greater similarity with the Social Security tax.
So tell me, private pensions, who is going to benefit from this tax cut?
Anyone that has a 401k or a pension through the union guys. Absolutely.
The hard-working together pipes today, he would benefit from his pipefitters pension plan.
Hard-working Missourians should benefit just as the Social Security tax cuts last year. And I would point out that through these tax cuts that we've implemented, last year we implemented that Social Security tax cut. That was a $300 million hit. We are growing the economy. By cutting taxes, I contend Missourians are going to want to stay here. Our residents, when they retire here, want to remain here. They want to take their kids to school. It keeps family units intact. We are growing our economy and cutting taxes. I think that's the key to success. That's what we stand for as Republicans. Let people keep their money and spend it as they see fit. You will see a booming economy. We're investing in our children. We're giving them their money to spend as they see fit, and that's what we do here.
Speaking of people coming here, the Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas came out and said, okay, the immigrants come to Texas. Greg Abbott had a great idea. Send them to the blue places that say they want all these immigrants. Well, they can't handle them now. He said send them to Kansas City. Mike Keogh says no way in hell. What do you say?
Well, I empathize with Governor Abbott. I mean, Governor Abbott has long asked for help. In fact, we just did that in Missouri. We are sending Missouri National Guard troops and funding that for the next fiscal year as well to the border to stop this invasion. I don't think unauthorized immigrants coming in. I think you can immigrate lawfully. That's fine. But this is an invasion of unlawful immigrants coming into the border. We haven't vetted them. We don't know who they are. They're just flooding our borders. And for our mayor in any of our American cities to say, hey, that's okay, that's unacceptable. That's chaos. We need to promote lawful immigration, vet these people as they come over the border, know who they are. And I welcome that. But the policies that Governor Abbott is facing are very difficult from the federal government when they're saying come onto the border, and then our mayors are saying, no, come to our cities, when we just invested in protecting Missouri. That's the wrong thing to do.
Speaker Plocher, thank you for the time.
Thank you for having me, Scott. Great to be on, and I look forward to the next 4 weeks.
We'll be right back. Superman himself's going to join us, Brian Seitz, after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All throughout Missouri, businesses are struggling to find workers. Childcare challenges are a big reason why. Our kids are losing out too. Through high-impact early childhood investments, we can support the workforce of today and better prepare our workforce of tomorrow. Empower families with the resources they need to succeed. Reduce crime and avoid costly interventions, saving taxpayers money. Together, we can make Missouri the best place to work, raise a family, and be a kid.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back. This week in Missouri politics, Superman himself, Representative Brian Seitz from Branson. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you very much. Good to be here, Scott.
Maggie Nurrenbern, running for Senate in the Northland. Am I saying that right?
Absolutely. The Northland in Clay County, District 17. Thanks for having me.
Big shoes to fill more north.
Oh, it's going great. We're ready to rock and roll as soon as session's out, and we're going to win that one.
Representative Melanie Stinnett from Springfield. Thanks for making the time.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
And Rodger Reedy from Benton County. Big accomplishment, whether you're for it or against. It's a big piece of legislation. It will have a big impact on schools. This education bill, it had something in it for public school. It's something in it for charter schools. Where'd you come down?
Well, thank you, Scott, for having me here today. I represent District 57, which is parts of Pettis, Johnson, Benton County, and Central Missouri. And, I'm a big public school advocate, always have been, always supported them. My wife's a school teacher, so... But I did end up voting for this bill today. The things that I liked in it, there were some things I really didn't like, but I voiced that, and they made those corrections. I liked the transportation issue because I have kids that live 30 miles from the school. They got to get to school.
I used to ride the old yellow dog 45 minutes one way.
And so when they took that, without that transportation money, they can't buy diesel. That's just plain and simple. I liked they clarified the firearms thing. And then also the teacher pay. The teacher pay was a real big issue for me. We've got schools trying to attract teachers right now. Nobody's applying. And they're not there. They're not getting paid enough. And, teachers weren't the ones contacting me about the bill because they're in the classroom working with kids. They don't have time to be on their phone or be calling me. So, but I did vote for the bill today, and that was one of those. I just felt like that we needed to do something. And there might have been some things in it I didn't like, but you know, you have to take the good and bad both in this bill.
Melanie, I thought it was an interesting bill. Carl Lesser got involved in the Senate. And, normally these things are, okay, you're for charter schools, you're not for charter schools. This bill had some literal things that were good for public education with an expansion of charter schools. It kind of was a compromise.
Yeah, when I took a look at the bill, I really took a look at the package. And I read the bill from start to finish and looked at all of the components within it. It's got some good strengthening of language for children with disabilities in the ESA program. It adds in dyslexia, which I think is a really important topic that schools aren't always paying attention to, although we've passed some legislation in the past regarding that. And then to his point about teacher pay, it also had a differential pay scale for those hard-to-fill seats and those hard-to-fill teacher positions. And I think all of those things are really important. I thought it was a great bill. I was happy to vote yes on it.
Maggie, you were in 100-proof Maggie form on the floor.
Full teacher mode today, for sure. Yeah.
Tell folks what's wrong with this bill.
Well, fundamentally, public dollars belong in public schools. Scott, I don't drive I-44, so I'm going to say, hey, I don't want any of my tax dollars going there because I want to take that and build that new circle driveway in front of my house. Mm-hmm. And you know what? But let's finish this first. Listen, absolutely. But that's what the problem is. We were told a package of lies along the way when we started this. This is the next step to universal vouchers. And fundamentally, these schools are not improving student achievement, and that's what we want to do. They're turning students away. Yes, there's good stuff in this bill. I am the first to admit that. There is language that I have worked on for a very long time that got tucked into this bill. However, I cannot push that green button when I know that this is the next step to dismantling our public schools. Look what we've done in Boone County. And the possibility of a charter opening there, first of all, I think the joke's on them because those are the most woke progressive schools in our state. And I can say that having taught in them. But you're going to see shuttered buildings in Columbia in neighborhoods that depend on those public schools to keep their kids safe. And that's sad.
Right? I thought you really looked at this, and it was not your normal clear-cut, we're going to expand charter school bill.
Right.
It was, we're gonna give public schools enough to try to get you to take the good with the bad.
Sure. I would suggest this is the most vetted bill that I've seen in my 4 years here in the State House. We looked at it line by line.
I got to jump there. Vetted because we're not even going to do amendments on the House floor today. So first of all, I have to throw that out there.
I stood up as well to present amendments and wasn't called on. But we had some of the fixes that I was about to offer in the following bill. There was another bill that just came back from the Senate. Some of the fixes for 727 were in that bill. I'm very fortunate that I have great public schools in my area, but I don't see that in the rest of the state, including Boone County. They need some help. It's about the students. It's not about the institution.
Yeah. It is kind of neat, though, to see the Senate coming to House members saying, what do we need to do to make you happy? You don't see that very often. That's what they were doing on Wednesday. They were meeting with House members saying, how do we make you happy?
They were desperate. I mean, they were so desperate, and all of these lies about school choice, we've seen again that this is schools being able to choose their students. I mean, the lies across the board, rural school districts know that this is the final nail in their coffin. Suburban moms who just want to homeschool their kids didn't like this because they don't want the oversight. And I say, good for them, right? And it's the same thing. We have worked on so many amendments to put language in the budget to increase teacher pay, right? And all of a sudden, we're told, wait, we couldn't fund those things just a couple of weeks ago in the state budget. Well, we can pay for it now.
I thought Deb Lavender usually makes good points, and she did again. Brian Seitz, it's been one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. An ethics complaint against a speaker is always going to be a very politically charged situation.
Sure.
The process, it sort of started to come apart, February-ish. But now you got a totally broken system of a chairwoman that won't have another hearing because she's going to lose the vote. I don't even know what to say, how to describe it accurately. You have a bit of a dumpster fire over your chamber, though, don't you?
Right, Scott. I said from the very beginning, much ado about nothing. There were certain things that were supposed to be opened up in the Ethics Committee, specifically dealing with the way things were paid and reimbursed and so forth. That problem was taken care of early on. I think the Ethics Committee went beyond their scope They had to go beyond their scope because this should have been done in a week. It didn't take 4 months to come out with a non-ruling. It should have taken a week. I think it was a witch hunt, and I'm glad it's basically over.
Rodger, I think a fair person could say Dean Plocher is the leader of your chamber. He should have kept his expenses in order. But the process of this has not been a good look on the Missouri House of Representatives.
No, it sure hasn't. This was my 6th term in the House, so I'm probably the senior member of the House here on this panel. And it was sad to see what drug on. And, I knew every member of that ethics committee. And
it's a terrible thing to be on.
And, and I respect every one of them. I consider every one of them good friends, whether they're Democrat or Republican. Sure. And it was sad to see that go on. It's time for it to be done, and it's time for it to be behind us, and so we can move on. We only have 4 weeks left in session, and we've got a lot of things we need to do. So I was glad they went ahead and kind of did something to get towards the end of it, but, I don't see anything that needed to take this kind of time.
Maggie, you just had to go pop some popcorn and watch the Buffaloes fight.
Listen, you know what? All of us are here because we want to do good stuff for the state. And what is sad to me on any of these situations, right? And we've had folks in our caucus who've been, bad apples, and we've kicked them out, right? So listen, what I wish would have happened, quite frankly, is that the speaker would have collaborated much earlier on, and that we all could have put this behind us before session started. I'm still going to see, I have a few weeks left in the House. I have one of the smallest offices in the entire House of Representatives. And my goal is just to get an office as nice as that liquor cabinet.
We all have goals.
We all
get
have
Senate
goals.
You'll be able to stretch out. You can put your liquor cabinet in your Senate office.
It's been something. It's been something to watch. But is it a great thing for us? No. We want the best for this institution.
But we're looking forward. I mean, Dean Plocher and his family went through this for 7 months. You spent $20,000 in taxpayer dollars. It's not. I think this is the problem that the federal government has, and the problem this committee had. It's fine to say we didn't find anything. Mm-hmm. That's not a failure. That's just facts. I think for Dean and his family, the chairwoman now says she won't have any more meetings because she's going to lose the vote. They deserve a vote to end this, right? I mean, I think you have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak for what should happen. I'm not on the ethics committee, and it's something I'm glad that I'm not on. It's been quite a journey to watch. But, I will say, kind of to what Representative Nurrenbern said, I don't know that it was up to Dean to say, this should be done. The ethics committee, I think, had to meet for whatever reasons they felt. Concerns were brought to them. Could it have been quicker? Absolutely. But here we are.
Give me a prediction. Next session, you need to clean this process up and make it where this thing can't go this far off the rails.
I think there'll be a look at the House rules, and people are going to be reading those closer instead of just voting yes. And
only there's a committee looking at how to tighten this up. You can't let this go on.
I would agree with that.
I mean, you'll be in the Senate, you'll get to look over it. This process has been bad.
I do think you need a separate process when it involves the speaker, because that's a whole different thing. The speaker is in charge of a lot of different things, the subpoena power, all of these things. And so I really wish there's a lot of room for improvement on the House rules. I think all of us agree with that.
Right. Next year, will your staff work for you or some bureaucrat?
No, my staff will work for me, and I'd recommend that they put me as the chair of the ethics committee. We'll get things done in 4 days. We'll make a logical decision over an emotional decision. And we'll
96 hours.
God help us all.
So, Maggie, we talked about how there's been some times with this. The Democrats can kind of set back. The 5 folks from your caucus, God bless them for serving on that committee. That is public service. But the pace of session has been very slow.
It's been incredibly slow. What's frustrating to me is we still haven't passed the FRA.
Yeah.
And this is leaving a $4.3 billion hole in our budget. We've yet to pass the actual state budget, and the Senate hasn't. We're talking 4 weeks left until the end of session.
The budget's on track still.
3 weeks left until we need to TAFP that budget. And so time is of the essence here. What's frustrating to me, in the House, we left $2 billion on the bottom line. So the Senate's going to have to move very quickly with all their pet projects.
6 years in a row.
We're going to come back over and just put our
Imagine next year in the Senate, if it still goes this way, you'll get to.
Oh, I know. I absolutely love that. We got to do what we want. Brian doesn't have to push back against my, proposal.
I might be there someday.
It's a great place.
There you go. I like that. So tell me, I mean, it has been a pretty slow moving process. The budget is not historically off from where it normally is, but the FRA, I mean, at some point, the adults just have to sit down and say, we're doing this, get over it.
Sure, the FRA is a really important piece of legislation to protect our seniors and others in our community.
Well, keep hospitals open.
Absolutely. So it is important, and we're going to get there.
I mean, there will be no hospitals anywhere except St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, Springfield if you don't pass the FRA.
That's right. And we will get it passed. I think it'll be done before the end of the session. We're going to get the budget done. When it push comes to shove, I've sat there for years, and these things do get done. Now, if we don't get them done, the governor's going to call us back in. But I always think that's kind of a signal to our people back home that we didn't do our job. So, I think it's going to get done, and those are the two important things.
Can you go back to Warsaw and tell the folks you're done working if you haven't passed the FRA?
No.
I mean, it's just a common, right, it's a thing. At some point, don't you have to say, guys, this has got to happen. You got to shut up.
Sure, the FRA is extremely important, but I'm in support of Cody Smith's bill. We need to completely defund Planned Parenthood because the monies that are coming through the Missouri budget for Planned Parenthood are being used in other states to commit abortions.
And
that has to be stopped now prior to hearing anything about the FRA. We have to protect the innocents in the womb.
Let me tell you, I think Susan Klein catches more heat than maybe she deserves. She did say something. You can't close these hospitals over this issue, can you?
No, we can't, but we have to get this issue taken first.
They're going to close us off of the air, so with a minute left, 2 on the week.
I have a couple people. I think our budget chair, Cody Smith, and the appropriations chair from the Senate, they sent their first budget bill to the governor. And if you'll allow me, I have a good friend across the aisle, Gretchen Banger, and we all love Gretchen and her women's group who raised a lot of money. You were part of that. They gave a lot of scholarships to girls, and those girls were in the Capitol this week, and they had a great program. So Gretchen won the week along with the women legislators that I serve with.
Won the week.
I think kids in Missouri and their education.
Won the week.
2, Planned Parenthood. They continue to offer cancer screenings and all the things we need to keep women safe. And secondly, the Senate Democratic candidates in these swing districts are doing an incredible job with fundraising. Reports came out this week, and we see in all of these targeted districts, we're going to win. Joe Peeler's is going to be elected. Stephen Weber's going to get elected. Robbie Schultz gets elected. I get elected to the Senate. We are outraising the Republicans every day of the week.
Okay, so did you just say you won the week while sitting beside Brian?
I did, absolutely.
I love it.
I outraged him.
Incredible.
I'm beating him to the Senate.
Of course.
I'm beating him to the Senate.
As is typical, I won.
I love it. I love it.
2874, protecting Missouri small businesses. I think that's extremely important. And if you didn't individually win the week, then you're not doing your job.
Well, you and Maggie clearly both do your job. I love it. I'm going to say John Patterson. Today was a big vote. It's one that will be remembered. I think he's the future of the Missouri Republican Party, and that future might have started this week. I hope you'll join us here next week for This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.